Welcome to the Boring Podcast. Tonight we'll calmly talk through something that happened, perhaps, or didn't. If this helps you drift off, we've done our job. Feel free to do nothing at all.
Yes, welcome. And as person one mentioned, tonight's topic, or rather, the subject of our rather extended and detailed conversation, if you can call it that, is shoebox lids. A seemingly simple item. Wouldn't you agree? But we'll delve into, or perhaps gently wade into, the surprisingly, or perhaps unsurprisingly, nuanced world of these cardboard coverings. We'll be examining, or perhaps more accurately, glancing at, the various types, or perhaps styles, if you will. This will take some time. Prepare to relax.
Indeed. Shoebox lids. These often overlooked, rectangular pieces of, cardboard. They serve a purpose, of course. They keep the shoes, the ones inside the box, free from dust and, other things. Things like, perhaps, small debris. Or possibly, airborne particles. We'll discuss the function of these lids, or covers, or tops, in more detail later, I suppose. Or maybe not. We'll see. It depends, I suppose, on how we're feeling. Or perhaps not.
Yes, the functionality of the shoebox lid is a key element of its, shall we say, existence? Or perhaps its purpose. It sits atop the box, a flat, generally unassuming piece of cardboard. It's usually the same size as the box opening, although sometimes, and this is quite interesting, or perhaps not, it can be slightly larger, overlapping the edges. We'll explore that later, perhaps. Or maybe in a future episode. Who knows, really? The possibilities are endless, or perhaps not.
There are, one might say, different types of shoebox lids. Or, to be more precise, variations on the basic themes. Some are attached, connected to the box itself by a thin strip of, more cardboard. Others are separate, entirely detached, individual entities. Imagine that. A separate lid. Quite remarkable. Or perhaps not. It depends on one's perspective, I suppose. Or perhaps not. We'll explore this duality further, in due course. Or perhaps not.
The detached lid. A free-floating rectangle of cardboard. It's a curious thing, isn't it? Or perhaps it's not. It rests upon the box, fulfilling its primary function of, covering. But it can be removed, lifted away, exposing the contents within, and then replaced, returning the box to its original, covered state. A cycle of covering and uncovering. Fascinating, perhaps. Or perhaps not. It's a matter of opinion, really.
And the attached lid. Connected, tethered to the box. It hinges, or rather, folds along a pre-creased line. A subtle design feature, yet remarkably effective. It opens and closes. A repetitive motion. Back and forth. Open, close. Open, close. It's quite something, or perhaps not. One could spend hours pondering this, or perhaps not. Time will tell. Or perhaps it won't.
Yes, the subtle complexities of the shoebox lid. We'll be unraveling these complexities, or perhaps just lightly touching upon them, throughout this episode, or perhaps series of episodes. We haven't quite decided yet. It's a long journey, this exploration of cardboard. Or maybe it's a short one. It depends on how you look at it, I suppose. Or perhaps not. We'll see.
We've established there are, broadly speaking, two types of shoebox lids. The lift-off kind and the attached kind. Now, the lift-off kind, sometimes called the detachable lid, is, as the name suggests, a lid that lifts off. It's separate from the box. You lift it. It comes off. The box is then open. Sometimes these lids fit snugly. Sometimes they're a little loose. It depends, really, on the box. And the lid. Sometimes the cardboard is a bit warped. That can affect the fit. It's a simple concept, really, this whole lift-off situation. But there's a surprising amount of variation within this category. More than you might think, at first glance anyway.
Yes, and then there's the attached lid. This kind of lid is, generally speaking, attached to the box. It's connected, usually by a thin strip of the same cardboard material as the box itself. This strip acts as a hinge, allowing the lid to fold open and closed, back and forth, like a door almost, or a gate, a small cardboard gate. For your shoes, Sometimes these hinges are perforated, making them easier to tear if you want to detach the lid completely out of the box. But until you do that, it's attached, connected, part of the box. Unlike the lift-off lid, which is, well, not attached. A key difference, as we've discussed.
Now, with the lift-off lid, you have to find a place to put it once you've lifted it off. This can be a minor inconvenience. Where does it go? On the floor? On a shelf? Under the bed? It depends, of course, on the available space and your organizational preferences. Sometimes it gets lost. The lid. Not the box. The box usually stays put, containing the shoes. But the lid, sometimes it wanders. A small, rectangular wanderer, made of cardboard.
The attached lid, on the other hand, stays with the box. Always. Unless, of course, you detach it. By tearing along the perforated hinge. Or just ripping it off, which is also an option. Although it might not be as neat. But if neatness isn't a priority, then ripping is perfectly acceptable. It's your box, your lid, your choice. But as long as it remains attached, you don't have to worry about misplacing it. It's always there. Attached. Waiting. Like a loyal, cardboard companion. For your shoes.
Think about the material. Usually cardboard. Sometimes a slightly thicker cardboard. Sometimes a thinner cardboard. It depends on the manufacturer. And the quality of the shoes. More expensive shoes sometimes come in boxes with thicker cardboard, providing more protection for the shoes. But the lid principle remains the same. Lift off or attached, regardless of the cardboard thickness. A fascinating detail, isn't it?
Indeed. The subtle nuances of shoebox lid design. A topic often overlooked, yet so rich in detail. We could spend hours discussing the various types of cardboard used. The different adhesives. The printing techniques. The slight variations in size and shape. And we probably will. In future episodes, perhaps. Or perhaps not. We shall see. But for now, let's continue to contemplate the fundamental distinction. Attached versus lift-off.
The edges of the lids are also worth considering. Sometimes they're smooth. Sometimes they're a bit rough, depending on how the cardboard was cut and the quality of the cutting tools. Sometimes the edges are reinforced with a thin strip of paper or plastic for added durability, or just for aesthetics, a small detail perhaps, but a detail nonetheless. Worth mentioning in the context of our discussion of shoebox lids.
And let's not forget the corners. 4 corners. On most shoebox lids. 90-degree angles. Where the edges meet. Sometimes these corners are sharp. Sometimes they're slightly rounded. From wear and tear, or from the manufacturing process itself, they can become slightly dented or crushed. Over time. With handling, another subtle detail, but one that contributes to the overall character of the shoebox lid. A small, unassuming piece of cardboard, yet so complex, in its own way.
Yes, the corners, often overlooked, but crucial to the structural integrity of the lid. Whether it's lift-off or attached, the corners play their part, silently, supporting the flat surface of the lid, allowing it to fulfill its purpose of covering the box, protecting the shoes from dust and other airborne particles.
Precisely. The often unsung heroes of the shoebox. Those 4 corners. Holding it all together. In their quiet, unassuming way. And so we continue our exploration of this fascinating and surprisingly complex world of shoebox lids.
As we were saying, or rather, as we may have alluded to earlier in this exploration of the, shall we say, subtle nuances of shoebox lids, there's the classic lift-off lid, the kind that just sits there, perched atop the box. No hinges, no latches, no fuss. It just rests atop the box. Sometimes it fits snugly. Sometimes it's a bit loose. And of course, sometimes, due to the vagaries of cardboard manufacturing, or perhaps the subtle warping effects of humidity, It doesn't quite fit as intended. It's a simple design, yes, but within that simplicity lies a world of, well, not a world of excitement, but a world of subtle variations, a world of slight imperfections, a world of lids.
Yes, the lift-off lid. A timeless classic. One might even call it the archetype of the shoebox lid. It's the one that comes to mind when one pictures, in one's mind's eye, a shoebox lid. Or perhaps, when one doesn't picture a shoebox lid, because one isn't actively thinking about shoebox lids. But it's there, lurking in the subconscious. The platonic ideal of a shoebox lid, so to speak. Just a flat piece of cardboard, cut to the appropriate dimensions, designed to cover the opening of a box designed to contain shoes. Or other items, of course. Shoeboxes are quite versatile, aren't they? One could store all manner of things in a shoebox. Buttons, for instance. Or perhaps string.
Indeed. Buttons and string. Excellent examples. But returning to the lid itself, the lift-off lid, as we've established, is characterized by its simplicity. It simply lifts off. One lifts it off. And then, one may put it back on. Or not. Perhaps one leaves it off. Perhaps one places it on a different box. The possibilities, while not endless, are certainly present. One might even say, numerous. Or at least, more than one. There's a certain, shall we say, quiet dignity in its unassuming functionality.
And then, as we touched upon previously, there's the attached lid, the one that's, well, attached. Connected to the box itself, typically by a thin strip of cardboard, often on one of the shorter sides. Though, I suppose, it could theoretically be on one of the longer sides. Though I've personally never encountered such a configuration. It hinges, so to speak, along that strip. One lifts it, it pivots, it swings open. And then, of course, it swings shut. A simple mechanism, yes, but effective. A testament to the ingenuity of cardboard engineering.
Ingenious, yes. Or at least, functional. The attached lid. A variation on a theme. A different approach to the same fundamental problem. How to cover a box. How to keep the contents contained. How to protect the shoes. Or the buttons. Or the string. Whatever the box may contain. It's a question that has plagued humankind for centuries, I imagine. How to cover a box. And the attached lid is one answer. One of many. But an answer nonetheless. A valid answer.
It's a subtle difference, isn't it, between the lift-off lid and the attached lid. A nuance. A slight alteration in design. But it changes the entire experience. The way one interacts with the box. With the lid. With the contents within. It's a different feeling. A different sensation. Subtle, yes, but perceptible, if one pays attention. If one is attuned to the nuances of cardboard.
Precisely. The nuances of cardboard. A vast and unexplored territory. A landscape of subtle variations. Of barely perceptible differences. And yet, within those subtleties, within those nuances, lies a world of, well, not excitement perhaps, but a world of something. A world of lids. Attached lids. Lift-off lids. And all the variations therein. It's a fascinating subject, wouldn't you agree? In its own quiet way.
Fascinating, yes. Or at least, something to occupy one's thoughts. Something to ponder. Something to contemplate. While drifting off to sleep, perhaps. Subtle differences between types of shoebox lids. A topic of minimal excitement. A topic to soothe the soul. A topic to induce drowsiness. Yes, drowsiness.
Now moving on to another subtle distinction in the world of shoebox lids, we have the overlapping lid. This type of lid, as the name rather plainly suggests, overlaps the base of the box. It's a bit like putting a slightly larger rectangle on top of a slightly smaller rectangle. Imagine, if you will, two rectangles. One is just a smidge bigger than the other. Now place the bigger one on top of the smaller one. That, in essence, is the overlapping lid. Sometimes it's difficult to remember where I put my keys. They're always in the last place I look, which I suppose is a good thing. Anyway, back to the lids. The overlap provides a bit more coverage. A bit more protection from, well, things. Dust, I suppose. Or perhaps a stray sunbeam.
Yes, the overlapping lid. A classic. A staple. A ubiquitous presence in the world of cardboard-based footwear containment. Think about it. Have you ever really thought about it? A subtle way the lid rests upon the base. The slight friction as you slide it on. The gentle tap as it settles into place. It's a tactile experience, isn't it? The overlapping lid. So dependable. So rectangular. I once saw a squirrel trying to get into a shoebox with an overlapping lid. It couldn't quite manage it. It was quite a persistent squirrel, though. I watched it for a while. Eventually, it gave up. Probably went to find an acorn or something. They like those.
Then there's the less common, yet equally unremarkable, detached lid. This lid, unlike its overlapping counterpart, is, well, detached. It sits atop the box, yes, but it doesn't cling. It simply rests there. A separate entity. Independent. Unattached. Like a small, flat, cardboard island in a sea of, well, whatever surface the shoebox happens to be resting upon. I find myself often misplacing the remote control. It's a constant source of mild frustration. Where does it go? Under the sofa cushions? Behind the curtains? The mystery persists. Just like the mystery of the detached lid. Why detached? Why so free?
The detached lid. A rogue. A rebel. A nonconformist in the world of shoebox lid typology. It doesn't play by the rules. It doesn't conform to the norms. It simply exists. Separate. Detached. Aloof. Like a cloud drifting across the vast expanse of the sky. Untethered. Unburdened. Free. Speaking of free, I once got a free ice cream cone. It was a Tuesday. Or maybe a Wednesday, I can't quite recall. But it was definitely a free ice cream cone. Vanilla, I think. Or perhaps strawberry. Anyway, back to the detached lid.
Both types of lids, of course, serve the same fundamental purpose. To cover. To contain. To protect the contents of the shoebox from the elements. From dust. From stray sunbeams. From curious squirrels, perhaps. Although, the effectiveness of either lid against a truly determined squirrel remains to be seen. I often wonder about the life cycle of a dandelion. From a bright yellow flower to a delicate sphere of seeds. It's quite fascinating, in a very understated way, much like shoebox lids.
Yes, the fundamental purpose of a lid. Coverage. Containment. Protection. These are important concepts. Vital, even, in the context of shoebox preservation. Think about what would happen if shoeboxes didn't have lids. Chaos. Utter chaos. Shoes scattered everywhere. No order. No structure. Just shoes. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? Like the time I ran out of milk. It was a Sunday morning. No shops were open. I had to have my coffee black. It was a dark day. A very dark day.
And yet, despite their shared purpose, the overlapping and detached lids remain distinct. Different. Separate. Like two peas in a troop, well, not in a pod. Because they're not peas, they're lids. More like two rectangles in a world of rectangles. Rectangular lids in a rectangular world. Sometimes, when I'm waiting for the kettle to boil, I find myself staring at the steam. It's quite mesmerizing, the way it curls and twists and dissipates into the air. It's a small thing, but it's something. Just like shoebox lids, there's something.
Indeed, two distinct entities. Two variations on a theme. Two sides of the same rectangular coin. The overlapping lid. The detached lid, each with its own unique qualities, its own distinct personality. It's a complex and nuanced topic, this world of shoebox lids. A topic worthy of contemplation, of reflection, of of discussion on a podcast dedicated to the mundane and the monotonous. I once spent a whole afternoon watching paint dry. It was surprisingly uneventful.
It truly is. Truly. Less than / person one greater than, less than person one greater than. So we've talked about a few different types of shoebox lids. We've covered the standard lift-off lid, the most common type, the one you just lift off. It just sits on top of the box. It doesn't attach, it just rests there. Gravity does the work, really. And then there's the attached lid, which is connected to the box itself, often by a thin piece of cardboard like a hinge. You lift it open, it swings open. And we talked about those two types for a while, going into detail about their various, mostly unnoticeable, differences. Remember that? We were talking about lids. Shoebox lids, specifically. It's a fascinating area when you think about it. Or not. It's up to you.
Yes, the lids, the tops of the boxes that shoes come in. They're often made of cardboard, just like the box itself. Sometimes a slightly thinner cardboard, but sometimes the same thickness. You have the lift-off kind, the one you simply lift. Straight up. And then the attached kind. They're attached. Connected. You don't lift them off entirely, you lift them open. Like a door, almost. But flatter. A cardboard door. We did spend some time on those two. We went in depth, if you will, exploring the nuances. The subtle variations. And now, here we are, circling back. Retreading familiar ground. It's quite calming, really. Or it might be. Perhaps.
We also mentioned the less common varieties. The ones you don't see as often. Like the sliding lid. Remember that one? It slides open, horizontally. Not very common for shoeboxes. More common for other types of boxes. But we mentioned it. Because it is, technically, a type of lid. And then there's the flip-top lid, where the lid is attached on one side and flips open. Not unlike the attached lid, really, but a bit different. Subtly different. And that's about it. Those are the main types. We've covered them extensively. Or so it seems.
The sliding lid, yes. That's a lid that slides. It moves horizontally along a track or groove, usually. Sometimes it just slides on the cardboard. Think of a drawer, but flatter. And made of cardboard. And attached to a box. A shoebox, perhaps. And the flip-top, yes, it flips. Upwards. Or sometimes downwards, depending on the design. It's connected on one edge. And it flips open. A simple mechanism. Effective. But not often seen in shoeboxes. We did cover quite a lot, didn't we? About lids. Just lids. It's surprisingly something.
We spent quite a bit of time discussing the pros and cons of each type of lid, like how the lift-off lid is simple, but can get separated from the box, and how the attached lid stays connected, but can sometimes tear. We delved into those details, explored the intricacies of cardboard, and its uses in lid construction. It's a surprisingly vast topic. Or maybe not.
Yes, the pros and cons. Advantages and disadvantages. The lift-off lid, simple, easy to remove, but also easy to lose. The attached lid stays connected, less likely to get lost, or can tear, or rip. Along the hinge, we went over all of that, in detail. Excruciating detail, perhaps, but detail nonetheless. It's the kind of in-depth analysis you've come to expect. Or perhaps not. From the Boring Podcast.
Now, I know we've already covered all this, but it's important to reiterate, to emphasize the key points. The lift-off lid lifts off. The attached lid is attached. The sliding lid slides. The flip-top lid flips. It's all about the mechanics. The simple, often overlooked mechanics of a shoebox lid. Think about it. Really think about it. Or don't. It's your choice.
Repetition is key. It helps solidify the information. Helps it sink in. Like a heavy object sinking into something soft. Like a pillow. Or a cloud. A metaphorical cloud. We're repeating ourselves. Going over the same ground. The lift-off lid. The attached lid. The sliding lid. The flip-top lid. These are the types of shoebox lids. Mostly. There might be others. But these are the ones we're focusing on. For now. It's a lot to take in. Or maybe not.
We've been discussing shoeboxes, and specifically, their lids. Now, a lid, in its most basic form, is a covering. It's a separate piece, distinct from the box itself, although designed to fit snugly on top. And it's this snugness, this precise fit, that allows the lid to, well, contain the contents of the box beneath it. Of course, sometimes the fit isn't perfect. Sometimes there's a slight overhang. Or perhaps the lid sits a bit inside the edges of the box. These subtle variations, though seemingly insignificant, contribute to the overall experience of the shoebox lid. And that's what we're here to explore, these often overlooked details, the subtle nuances of a shoebox lid. We'll talk more about the fit later. For now, let's just sit with the idea of the lid as a separate, yet integral, component.
Yes, the separateness. That's a key aspect of the lid, wouldn't you say? It's not attached, not permanently fixed to the box. This allows for easy access to the contents within, of course. But it also introduces a certain element of, well, let's just say it introduces an element. This detaching and reattaching of the lid, it's a repetitive action, one that we often perform without much thought. But if you stop to consider it, it's a very specific movement. A lifting, a placing, a slight adjustment perhaps. And then, the reverse process when closing the box. The placing down of the lid, the gentle pressure to ensure a secure fit. These are the things we're talking about. The small, almost invisible actions that define our interaction with the shoebox lid.
And the types of lids. There's the classic detachable lid, the one we've been discussing, where the lid is entirely separate. Then there's the attached lid, connected by a thin strip of cardboard, often perforated for easy detachment. But even then, once detached, it functions much like the separate lid. So, is it truly a different type? It's a question worth pondering. This attached yet detachable lid. It occupies a sort of liminal space in the world of shoebox lids. Is it one, or is it the other? Or perhaps, it's something else entirely. A hybrid. A transitional form. We might delve into that further later, but for now, let's just acknowledge its existence.
The material, too, plays a role. Most commonly, it's cardboard. A thin, pliable material, yet surprisingly strong. It holds its shape, protects the contents within, but cardboard can vary in thickness and texture. Some lids are smooth, others slightly rough. And then there's the color, often a plain, unassuming brown. But occasionally you might encounter a lid with a printed design, perhaps a logo or a pattern. These variations, while subtle, add another layer to the complexity of the shoebox lid. The texture, the color, the thickness, all contributing to the overall experience.
And think about the edges of the lid. They can be straight, clean cuts, or slightly rounded. Sometimes they're reinforced with extra cardboard for added durability. This reinforcement, it's a practical consideration, of course. It prevents the edges from fraying or bending. But it also affects the aesthetics of the lid, the way it feels in your hand, the way it looks. These seemingly minor details, they all contribute to the overall impression, the overall lid-dashness, if you will.
And then there's the inside of the lid. Often overlooked, but just as important. Usually, it's the same plain cardboard as the outside. But sometimes, just sometimes, you might find a label stuck to the inside. A price tag, perhaps. Or a size sticker. These remnants of the shoe's journey from factory to store to box, they tell a story. A silent story, whispered by the inside of the lid. A story we often miss if we don't take the time to look. To really look.
We're getting into some complex territory here. The inside of the lid. It's a hidden world, a secret space, often unseen, yet always present, a silent partner to the outside of the lid. And this partnership, this interplay between inside and outside, it's at the heart of what makes a shoebox lid a shoebox lid. It's profound, in a way. The simple complexity of it all.
And we shouldn't forget those shoeboxes with lids that are integrated into the box itself. They fold down and tuck in, or perhaps they lift up and are attached at the back. A different style, yes, but still fulfilling the same basic function. To cover and protect the contents of the box. To be a lid, essentially. Even if it's not entirely separate, still lids.
We've talked about the standard lift-off lid, the overlapping lid, and the somewhat less common hinged lid. But now I think it's important to consider lids in a more, shall we say, conceptual sense. What times a lid, really? Is it merely a covering? Or does it represent something more? Perhaps a barrier between worlds, or maybe just a slightly different shaped piece of cardboard that happens to fit snugly on top of another, slightly differently shaped piece of cardboard. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts? I mean, not urgent thoughts, of course. Just, thoughts.
That's a very interesting point about the conceptual nature of lids. I've often found myself pondering the very same thing. usually late at night, while staring at the ceiling. Is a lid if it's not on a box? Is it just a piece of cardboard then? Or is it still a lid, just a displaced one, yearning for its box? And what about those plastic lids that come on those clear plastic shoeboxes? Are they truly lids, or are they more like transparent barriers? See-through lids. It's something to think about, isn't it? Or not. It doesn't really matter, it's just a thought.
Yes, transparency in lids. That's another layer to this whole lid situation, isn't it? I once had a pair of shoes in a clear plastic box with a clear plastic lid. I could see the shoes inside, but they were still contained. Was the lid truly fulfilling its purpose? Was it keeping the shoes in? Or just creating the illusion of containment? It was like a window to the shoe world. A shoe window. It's funny, the things you start to think about when you really delve into the topic of lids. Not funny, haha, of course, but funny, peculiar.
Peculiar is a good word for it. And it's not just shoebox lids. Think about all the other kinds of lids. Tupperware lids, jar lids, bottle caps. They're all just variations on the same theme, aren't they? Just things that cover other things. Containing, separating, protecting. It's a whole world of lids out there. A lid-filled world. Sometimes I wonder if we're all just living under a giant lid. Probably not, but, just a thought. A passing thought. Like a cloud drifting across the sky.
A giant lid. That's an interesting image. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if the sky is just a big blue lid? And what's on the other side? More lids? Probably. Or maybe not. It's hard to say. Sometimes I think about these things too much. Or maybe not enough. It's a fine balance, thinking about lids. Not too much, not too little. Just enough. Just enough to fill the time.
Filling the time. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Just finding ways to occupy the space between moments. Thinking about lids, watching paint dry, counting the tiles on the ceiling. It's all the same, really. Just ways to pass the time. Like leaves falling from a tree, drifting slowly to the ground. Just drifting. Slowly. Down.
Drifting. Yes, that's a good word. Just drifting. Like a boat on a calm lake. No destination. No particular purpose. Just drifting. Or maybe like a dust bunny under a bed. Just existing. Barely moving. Almost imperceptible. Just there.
Yes, just there. Being. Existing. Not doing much of anything. Just being. Like a shoebox lid. Sitting on a shoebox. Doing its job. Or not. It doesn't really matter. In shoebox. Just being. There.
Being there. Existing. Like a silent hum in the background of everything. A constant, low-frequency vibration. Almost imperceptible. Just there. Like a lid. Or not even a lid, just something. Vaguely something. Less than, person one greater than, less than, person one greater than. So we've talked about the standard lift-off lid, the more uncommon but still seen hinged lid, and even touched upon the slightly more specialized, and frankly, not very exciting, sliding lid. We've also considered the materials these lids are often made from, like cardboard, of course, and sometimes that slightly glossier, more robust cardboard. And let's not forget those less common, perhaps even rare, shoebox lids made from a sort of plastic ditty material. It's all quite fascinating in its own, way. We're nearing the end of our discussion on shoebox lids, but I'm not entirely sure what conclusions we can draw.
Yes, it's been a thorough exploration of the, shall we say, nuances of shoebox lid design. We've covered the common and the uncommon, the practical and the, perhaps, slightly less practical. We've delved into the materials, the construction, and even touched on the, let's call it, the aesthetic qualities of these often overlooked components of footwear packaging. But I'm also not entirely sure what definitive statements we can make about the overarching topic of shoebox lids. It's all rather, open to interpretation, wouldn't you say? There's certainly more to consider. Possibly.
Indeed. We could, I suppose, further categorize lids based on their color, though often they are a plain, unassuming brown, or sometimes white. Occasionally, one encounters a shoebox lid with a printed logo or some other design element. This adds another layer of complexity to our discussion, but perhaps not a particularly thrilling one. I'm starting to feel a bit drowsy just thinking about it, to be honest.
Yes, the color variations are a whole other realm of shoebox lid taxonomy. We could spend, well, quite a bit of time delving into the different shades of brown, the various textures of white, and the, dare I say, vibrant hues of those less common, printed lids. But I agree, it's not exactly a topic that keeps one on the edge of their seat. It's all rather, well, calming, isn't it?
Calming indeed. I'm almost feeling as though I could drift off right now, just thinking about the subtle variations in cardboard texture and the slight differences in lid fit. It's all so, well, unexceptional. But in a good way, of course. A very good way. For sleep.
Precisely. It's the unexceptional nature of the shoebox lid that makes it such a, well, suitable topic for this podcast. It's not demanding, it's not controversial, it just is. And that, in itself, is rather remarkable, isn't it? The sheer unremarkableness of it all. It's almost profound. Almost.
Profound in its simplicity, perhaps. Or maybe not. We've covered a lot of ground. Or perhaps not that much at all. It all depends on perspective, I suppose. The one thing's for certain. It's late, and I'm finding it increasingly difficult to focus on the intricacies of shoebox lid design.
Yes, the intricacies, or lack thereof. It's a fine line, isn't it, between intricate and, well, not intricate. And the shoebox lid, in all its various forms, seems to occupy that space quite comfortably. Comfortably dull. Which is, of course, the point. We've almost reached the end of this segment. Almost. But not quite. There's always more to say about almost anything. Even shoebox lids. Perhaps especially shoebox lids.
Perhaps. Or perhaps not. Less than, person 1 greater than, less than, person 1 greater than. Thank you for joining us. Let go of the day and drift softly into rest. There's nothing more to do. Nothing more to think about. Just this moment. Just your breath. Just peace. Sleep well.
Good night and sweet dreams.